Hi everyone, today I'm meeting with Jeremy Sykes, Managing Director of Polygon UK and Ireland. After a little introduction, we will be talking about sustainability challenges in insurance. We'll then look at the sustainable business model we should be looking for, and then claims management and customer journeys. So good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, I'm meeting with Jeremy Sykes, from Managing Director of Polygon UK and Ireland. Polygon is one of those amazing companies which is focused on property damage restoration and repair. The team at Polygon understand that property is one of our most valuable assets, and they work with some of the most amazing insurers out there to help them understand how to combine property, people, and sustainability. So, Jeremy, tell me a little bit more about you. Who are you?
Well, after that introduction, Sabine, that was great. I'm Jeremy Sykes. I've been in Polygon now for around 12 years. I'm an engineer by background, actually. I've spent most of my career in manufacturing in automotive and aerospace and the general industry. So coming into this world was actually a really different world, providing services for people. But it is a very interesting and different environment to work in, I have to say.
Well, tell us, what drew you into this new sector? What are you bringing from your old sector, which is so relevant for us, actually, in insurance as well?
Well, I think the ability to ask stupid questions is quite a good one. I think when you come in from outside, you've got the ability to say, why do you do it like that? And you've got a background in a different way. I guess I'm a bit illogical person being an engineer, and then you kind of break things down into bits that I can understand. So I can look at all of the services that we do, why we do them, how we do them. It's very difficult in the UK to make money as a supplier within in the insurance world and what we do. To do it, we've got to be very good in terms of the customer service that we provide. We've got to be very good in terms of the insurers' service level agreements and achievement of the quality and all the provisions that we must adhere to from the Financial Conduct Authority, for example. And we've also got to be real. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about our business is that everybody's an employee. We aim to train people very well. We aim to do things properly. We aim to actually be a good citizen as well as providing good services.
So Jeremy, how does your business differ when you look at Polygon UK vis-a-vis Polygon Group, because you actually extend beyond the United Kingdom and Ireland?
Yeah, no, you're quite right. I mean, ours is an international business. My boss, who's the CEO of the group, sits in Stockholm. We've been going for 70 years overall. We did have a different name, Munters. We were part of a manufacturing business, designing and developing very specialized dehumidifiers many years ago. And we became a fully serviced company, well, actually not that long ago, only 12 years ago or so. In terms of what we do, we serve insurers all over the world. Our biggest areas are continental Europe, the UK and North America. We've got different industries with slightly different demands, expecting to do things in different ways. For example, the UK is historically a very price-focused market in terms of what we as consumers buy when we go out and buy our insurance. We're not very loyal. And that's not true in somewhere like Germany, for example. People don't change their insurers very often. In here, as long as you get a cuddly toy, people are prepared to change for £5 or something, so it's different.
Yeah, very, very different worlds. And so that takes me to, therefore, who is your insurance customer when you look at, the insurance sector you serve, Jeremy?
So we work with most of the top 10 UK large insurers in both residential, in sort of standard commercial, small, medium-sized enterprise, for example, as well as major and complex claims. And we work for most of the big insurers, and we're very proud to do that. We deliver all of our services nationally to them, of course. And whether you're in the north of Scotland, in Northern Ireland, in Middle Wales, or in London, people expect the same level of service, and we've got to aim to deliver that for all of those people.
And so therefore, we talked before about sustainability. And so my question to you is, what does sustainability means for you and your business?
It's funny, really, because our whole business is about sustainability, because our whole business is about restoration. That is what we have that phrase, it's what it says on the tin. That's what we do. Our business is a restoration business. We aim to get people back to how they were before something happened. And we aim to do that by fixing something rather than ripping it out and replacing it. That's our goal. So it's really, I feel very lucky in the sense that actually when we talk about sustainability, I can honestly say that is our company. That is what we do. That is the service we offer to insurers. Some people perhaps are putting greenwash on the things that they actually do. And they come and say, oh yes, we're in that. And you think, are you really? Actually, you're still ripping stuff out. You're still actually replacing things. What we're very much always have been trying to do ever since we started this business is to try to repair and get people back to where they were in a cost-effective way.
So one thing you highlighted, very important, which is what we call the circular economy, where instead of ripping things out and throwing things away, we start repurposing, upcycling, recycling things. And I think you also touch an area which is scope 1, 2, and 3. Can you tell us a little bit more as to how that works for you at Polygon?
Yeah, so I guess people are familiar with the greenhouse gas protocols of scope 1, 2, and 3. And we have been working on, they were put in place, I think, 20 years ago now, but I guess they've only really started coming to prominence in most people's minds in the last few years. And people have started looking at what that means for them. So, scope 1 is perhaps the emissions of, say, company vehicles as you drive somewhere. So for us, that would be the travel of our technicians going to a site. Scope 2 would be the electricity or the heating gas that we would buy or burn in order to heat our properties. And scope 3 would be purchased goods and services and all sorts of other things. Now, if I was to look at scope 1 and 2, then certainly the biggest area is our travel. And we looked at that, I don't know, probably 7 years ago now, originally. I would be very honest and say, did I look at that purely because I wanted to do the right thing environmentally? No, not purely. I wanted to do it actually because oil was $100 a barrel and we couldn't make any money actually driving vans around. So, we put devices in all of our vehicles, including my own vehicle, every company car as well as a van, to give you annoying feedback continually to make you drive better. And, I know we can measure along with investing in new vehicles regularly, so we're Euro 6 compliant, that we've saved over 4,000 tons of CO2 over the intervening period. And I can prove that very easily. So that's a simple thing we've tried to do to reduce our scope 1 emissions. Scope 2, what can we do with that? Have we done enough? Probably not. We've looked at trying to do things like solar power and wind power, but we have very few buildings and they don't have very many people in them. So when the amount that you could save is tiny. Not saying it's something we wouldn't do, but economically speaking, it's tough to make it make sense. The big area for us is the stuff that Carbon Trust and the greenhouse gas protocols would call indirect emissions, the stuff that gets done on site. So this is us using equipment to restore a property, whether that's plugging in dehumidifiers or fans or whatever it happens to be to restore something. As they say, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. We have to. We didn't create that damage. That damage happened for a reason unknown to us. But what happened is that we've got to try to do that at the best both customer journey and both best environmental footprint that we can. And so, we've run all of our capital investments for 6, 7, 8 years through an environmental prism. Everything we buy has to be more efficient than what it replaces. And we've done that for many years. And that's something that's really important. But the picture is much wider than that. And insurers can help in this area, I believe.
So an interesting point you made, Jeremy, is, when we talked, Polygon is very much around property. And you also highlighted that as part of a business, when you go into your clients, you have to use vehicles. So therefore, you made the choice to also improve the equipment you use to service and support your customers. So what's your view on the future of mobility and electric vehicle? Is there things we could do better today?
It's really hard. The situation right now is that there are no vans good enough to have the range and the carrying capacity for one of our technicians to do a day, a day's work. It's also, as we probably all realize, the infrastructure is just not there to charge vehicles. Many of our technicians live in flats, they live in cities, they might live on a street where they don't have a garage to park their vehicle. Where do you plug in a vehicle? We have for a long time managed our technicians' diaries centrally. They don't turn up at a depot every morning. They go directly from their home to their first job, and they've got technology to efficiently manage their day, so that we have cut down all of the wasted journeys that we could do, because that's the first thing: eliminate journeys if you possibly can. We have got electric hybrid vehicles, hybrid vans, mild hybrids on order. We are running trials with vans. Ford is bringing out a larger transit before the end of 2021. We haven't seen it yet, but we're a very big Ford customer and we'll be able to use it. We really still don't have an answer to plugging in those vehicles and charging them and making it work for a technician. And clearly they've got to be able to carry equipment. They've got to be able to actually efficiently get everywhere. If they're going to sit for an hour waiting for a vehicle to charge in the middle of the day, who pays for it?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. Whilst we are looking at some of the improvements, I guess still a lot needs to be done. I think some of the stats shows that still today we are using, 80% of the fuel we are using is fossil fuel. So we're still really reliant on the old way of doing things, even though we are gradually moving to renewable source of energy. But it will still take some time to get the infrastructure right to move to this new world, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think it's, I'm very hopeful. It's positive, and it's something that we will do. We have to do it because the government has set targets for the elimination of internal combustion engines. And so it is something we're definitely committed to. What some of the other things that I think that we've got to work with insurers to do also is to sort of think about the expectations that are set in customers' minds when they're buying insurance policies. There have been a competitive need amongst insurers to be able to offer new for old policies, etc., over many years. We live in a kind of throwaway world, and we've all got used to that. And if we set that expectation in every insurance policy that actually this TV that's got wet, or it's been smoke damaged, it hasn't actually been physically burned, but it's been smoke damaged in a fire, well, I'm expecting new for old because that's what it said in my policy. If you've got that when we as Polygon walk through the door, it's pretty difficult to get that out of a customer's mind. But largely, we can restore that stuff, and maybe there's a balance there between actually restoring it and giving it back to that individual customer. From a product marketing perspective from the insurer, maybe they don't want to do that, depending on the type of customer and policy they bought. But it could be repurposed and sent to given to somebody else, for example, which stops somebody else buying another piece of equipment, which ultimately means that there's one less thing going to landfill and there's one less thing being bought. So I think there's a lot of work to do on that. I mentioned earlier that I came from the, worked a long time in the automotive industry in the US and in continental Europe and in the UK. One of the things that happened in the automotive industry when emissions legislation was coming out is the automotive industry didn't really help with defining the emissions legislation. And what happened is that government defined all the emission legislation, and government said, you will do this. And in California, particularly, California Air Resources Board. And what happened is that the industry then had to live with it and try and make it work. Now, it's different in different parts of the world, but it would be great if insurers were to take the lead in this area and actually create their own sort of methodology or code of conduct, which then started to get everybody thinking in the same way, that we should look at claims through an environmental prism. How are we going to actually take this product of insurance from being a sort of, yeah, you get a new one if something goes wrong, whether it's your contents or your home being replaced or something being replaced in your home, to our first stop is, how do we manage expectations? How do we actually make this happen in terms of a repair rather than a replacement?
So, you have approached a number of the challenges we are facing as in insurance industry when we look at addressing the new for old, but also changing people's mindset with regards to being willing to accept that sometimes repairing is better than getting new. A recent research, though, demonstrated because of the mindset, often the older people, the elder generation will expect new, while the younger generation may actually consider the sustainable approach to things. Do you have a point of view of that? Have you seen that based on your research too, Jeremy?
Honestly, Sabine, not really. I mean, I think we're one step removed from that, but I mean, I can quite understand the logic behind it. And I think there is my own kids are sort of early 20s, and they are much more engaged with the idea of actually what we as the older generation are doing to trash their world than my own generation, I think. And, they're taking their own action, deciding to eat less meat and do things like that in order to actually make a difference themselves. So it would certainly be consistent with what I see around the place, that people are open to those sort of ideas. I honestly think for the insurers who really want to grab hold of this and actually talk about a kind of environmentally responsible insurance policy, I think there's an audience for that.
Absolutely. And you already used some example, and I wondered whether you had additional example for maybe commercial lines in preventative maintenance that we could consider too with regards
to. Well, certainly we've long held the view that when you're looking at an insurance claim, the way to bring down the environmental cost and of course the claim cost is for claims to be as small as they can and for you to have fewer claims. That's not rocket science, but it's just the maths, if you like. So we set about a number of years ago saying, well, how can we have fewer claims? Or how can we make them smaller? And is there technology we can use? So, we've developed sensors, we've developed Internet of Things connected devices. I've got one in my home, and it will measure my water usage. It will give me a warning if it thinks that I'm using too much water. And depending on how I set it up, it will turn the water off if it thinks there's a leak. And those things are available at different levels of sophistication and different levels of cost. And they're not appropriate necessarily for everybody at very sophisticated levels. For insurers, they make sense perhaps in a commercial environment. They make sense perhaps in a high net worth claim environment where an insurer is looking at risk. They may have a policy taken out for an older property, which has probably got old plumbing in it, but very high value content in it. Well, it kind of makes sense to invest a few £100s in one of these devices to mitigate the possible risk of something bad happening, which would be very costly. So there's things like that. And in terms of apartment blocks, we sometimes get called in when there has been a water damage claim, for example, in an apartment block, because the impact of a water damage on one apartment is clearly much more than one apartment. And so it's quite possible to do, we would call it a plumbing MOT, a plumbing health check, preventative survey on something to actually say, what does this look like? What risks are there? What state is this plumbing in? Actually, it's in a pretty bad state, and give the insurer a heads up to say, before you insure this, if there's probably some work that needs to be done, which eliminates the top of the claim potentially.
So do you see, Jeremy, the insurer business model evolving? Where is the place for the traditional insurance model as you see movements towards a much more sustainable world?
Well, I firstly can't claim to be the expert in insurance at the insurance level, so I'll give you my completely ignorant view. But there's obviously a lot of change in insurance right now. There's the policies for content where that traditional model of everybody pays and one person claims kind of thing, which is the idea behind insurance originally, I suppose, and buying a policy once a year for everything, and it starts on one date and 365 days later it ends. And you see these models of swiping on insurance with your content when you leave the home and swiping off when as far as you're concerned, the risk is over. And those kind of things make a lot of sense. But I think for the home, I think some of the things I've referred to, some of those sort of preventative type of features are some of the ways forward for home insurance. At the end of the day, there are people who want their home to be covered. They want to know, even if it is a grudge purchase, a purchase that none of us want to buy, that idea that if something bad happens, then somebody is going to help me out and I'm going to get back to where I was, can be helped by taking some preventative action. And it, as I say, it can be very simple. We can put, and I haven't got one with me, but I've got some little sensors which are the size of a Scrabble tile, and they can connect to your phone. You can put one of those underneath your dishwasher or a place where historically water comes from, and put a few of them around your house pretty cheaply, and they can say everything from the temperature is low here to the humidity is high here, or there's water here. That can tell me, if they told me there's water here right now, then at least I can do something about it. So there's opportunities to use some of that technology, but definitely there's a kind of need to take the customers with us on all of this journey and actually get customers engaged in the idea that they have to change too, if we're really going to make a difference.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was talking to one of my very close friends recently, and she has a house outside London that she didn't visit for a while. And she had one of those apps which told her that something weird happened with the house, which was potentially a leak. And she could not believe that there could be a leak because I think the whole setting was changed pretty recently. And then she did make her way to the house, and yes, there was all the carpets a little bit full of water, but not that bad. It was a carpet problem rather than going down on the woodwork. Yeah. And so they were able to contain the loss as a result. So being able to be preventative is really great with some of the technology we have out there, which takes me, Jeremy, to ask you, when you look at claims management, and you touch upon that just now around the customer journey. When you look at claims management and customer journey, what does this mean to be effective around that customer journey? You already mentioned a little bit of a technology which could be used to help us to be more preventative. What do you see our future to look like when we combine technology and better customer engagements?
I think that there's a challenge, isn't there? Because some people are very comfortable with technology. Some people have got, they're shouting to Alexa every day and getting them to turn the volume up and down, etc. And it's quite possible to combine some of these same pieces of technology with some of that. And I kind of need to split up here between residential and commercial, because they're two different solutions, really. I think that property managers in a commercial setting are much more open to the idea of technology, that actually things will happen, that warnings will be made, there will be people who can take action, or devices can take action directly. And in our facilities in the UK, we've got a number of these devices. But it's interesting because some of those devices are not just telling you about you've got a problem. Some of them, for example, we found out that we had toilets leaking into the toilet bowl at 2 o'clock in the morning in our headquarters facility. There was no damage. There was no insurance claim. There's a lot of wasted water, though, and a lot of costs. Now, if you multiply that into a hotel environment or to an airport or something like that, these are all valuable commodities, these utilities. So actually, insurers potentially could be talking to customers about value beyond what they even think about today by using some of this technology. And so it's engaging customers with not just, this is something to prevent you having a problem. This is actually real value for you. This is something in a commercial sense that can save you money. So as an insurer, we're now talking about something beyond the scope of insurance. In a residential environment, I think there's a mix. I think the problem that we have in the UK, we have such a low price for residential insurance generally. The ABI, I think the latest number is about £315 for building and contents cover typically. And I mean, that's much lower than almost any other country. I say almost, I mean any other country, but I can't think of another country where it's lower. The Polygon works in anyway. And very difficult to actually then say, well, how do you get a piece of sophisticated technology in there that's really going to be able to take action? As I said, in a high net worth setting, possible. But I think actually starting to talk to people about an environmentally friendly insurance product where we start from the what is it you're buying, where you're buying something that's going to protect you and get you back on your feet, but also in an environmentally responsible way. And an insurer, when they're looking at claim resolution, is looking at claim resolution from an environmentally responsible way. So, if the first idea from an insurer is to say, I'm going to send a loss adjuster out, or I'm going to send a validation professional out, then what it immediately says is that there is going to be a delay before somebody does some physical action on that property. There has to be, because only one person is going and they've usually got an iPad rather than actually some technology. If you leave water, and I know I'm talking about water a lot, and we don't only deal with water, but if let's just take water. If you deal with leave water onto a surface like wood, like brick, like stone, then you can imagine what it does. It soaks into the fabric of the building. That then requires more energy to get it out. Energy means electricity generally. So by definition, you're by taking that claim settlement route from day one, you are immediately setting off down the road of not minimizing the carbon footprint. And so there's a whole rethinking that has to be done to say, what's the best process? Clearly, the insurer wants to make money, and so does the supplier. We've got a customer that wants to pay a certain price, so we've got to work out how we're going to do all of these things within that. But certainly, we've paid for research in Sweden to look at different ways of settling claims, and there's a massive difference depending on the route you choose, the delays in the system, the number of handoffs between suppliers, and the extension of a claim. But with some insurers, we're working to actually minimize. And we're going to see some good results with that.
That's fantastic to hear. And one point you actually highlighted, I think, Jeremy, is changing customer and consumer behavior, which requires, I guess, a lot of education. It will require investment as well from all parties, and maybe making some bets that we may not have done in the past, right? I think when I analyze a lot of the data around what insurers are doing to change their propositions, I see a lot of discounting, a lot of rewards, a lot of package things, which tend to be financially driven. But I wonder whether there are other things we could do, like gamification and looking at education as a means to changing behavior. Because as you said, the premium price for property insurance in the UK is very low. And, some homes have more assets than others, so therefore need to be protected in slightly different ways. But I think it's also because of education. We pay our premium once a year and we don't see much happening with it. However, when we start having this digital engagement and get to understand why we do things, we may be willing to pay a little bit more, particularly when we actually reinvest it in the environment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, we're seeing, going back to us as a group being an international group, we're seeing quite a take up in some of these services of providing customers with information by fitting in Internet of Things, IoT type devices in their homes. We're seeing quite a take up in Sweden and in Finland. One of our insurer customers is actually dealing with a whole town that is trying to actually have all these devices. And they believe, even though they've invested themselves in these devices, they believe it's significantly saved them money already. But it's interesting, we found out things. So I'll give you an example. We found out that the water utility company in this town in Sweden was having a problem with its pumping system, such that it was having pressure spikes going down the water supply line. What all the insurer knows about there is that they suddenly get a bunch of claims in this town. They don't know why, but we know why, because instead of having 4 bar pressure, they've got 8 bar pressure at certain times, and they're blowing the systems apart. Well, suddenly the insurer can say, hang on a second, I shouldn't be paying for this, you should be. And the utility company should be, who also are obviously not doing it on purpose, are saying, hey, we've got a problem, we've got to fix here. So it's you learn things you didn't even really know,
Yeah, it's where data becomes the oil of everything we do, because with data we have insight, and based on the evidence we can make the right choices, right? And so your example is an interesting one, because by having all key parties as part of the network ecosystem partnership aware of how they impact each other, we all can make better choices. Yeah.
So I'll pick you up on your phrase there, that the data is the oil of what we do. We really got to think up a better phrase that's carbon friendly, like maybe it's the sunshine or the
renewable energy. We need to find a few better words for this. You're absolutely right. I was thinking, I said, data is king, or we have a lot of metaphors, but we need to find the new ones.
Sorry.
So what are, for you, the recommendation you would have for the insurers who are there? And I also ask you for the InsurTechs. The reason why I'm asking you for the InsurTech or tech ventures coming into the market is because a lot of new technologies are going to come in to support many sectors to become much more renewable. Technology is going to be a risk. Technology going to drive emerging opportunities around, I think, emerging risk altogether. And so therefore enable insurers to look at the problem in very different ways. So yes, Jeremy, what would be your recommendation for our world out there?
It's interesting, because I think one of the things that I recognize is that insurers know almost nothing about the properties they insure. They know the postcode, they know where they're physically located, they know how far away the local river is, and they know how many bedrooms there are. Other than that, they know the name of the person that lives there, but they don't know very much. They don't know that my house is a much lower risk than my neighbour's house because I've looked after my plumbing system. Our houses are otherwise exactly the same. They don't know any of that stuff. So how can technology help with some of those things? I don't have the answers, but I do think that that's something that will emerge. I think whether you're in the supply chain or in the as an insurer, we have to look at the whole supply chain, the whole settlement of a claim, and we've really got to think about measuring our true carbon footprint. If I'm a little controversial, I would say that I've read a number of insurers' ESG reports over the years, and some of them really are kind of, yeah, we're changing the photocopy of paper and we've got LED lighting in the office. That is not their carbon impact. It might be technically their carbon direct footprint, but actually their real impact on carbon is how claims are settled. What's the first choice? How does it do it? How can we reduce claims? Our whole business is about dealing with damage after it's occurred. Our future model is less of that, and it's more about preventing damage and actually having services to prevent damage occurring in the first place. We will still do fixing damage, but we see our future strategically to be doing more about actually preventing damages or making them smaller, then fixing them, but actually kind of having a blended model like that.
So you have highlighted a few things which I think I would like to echo. First is that a lot of insurers potentially are focused on their operation when they look at sustainability. Taking out the paper, maybe reducing people's travel. The opportunity long term will probably focus or be when we start looking at the new product and services we design together. So there we are going into more probably scope 2 that we talked about earlier. But the major change will be when you start integrating your supply chain and your partners, and all together you actually transparently seeing as to how you impact each other and start building a better world, right? It's what I hear from you, Jeremy. So a lot of opportunity coming to market, hopefully, in the years to come.
Yeah, for sure. I know, I agree with that. I think we can only be truly sort of serious about this if we start to honestly measure the whole chain and then look at it and say, well, what are we going to do about this? Because actually we're all part of this in different places. And there are things we can do together, but it will take all of us thinking through the whole chain, not just saying, well, that's my bit. And yes, I'm kind of setting that one on the road, but that's not I don't actually pay for that fuel. So therefore it's not my problem. I'm going to close my ears to that. And
yeah, no, we can't do that anymore.
It can't be.
It can't be. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing
thanks, Sabine.
plans around Polygon, claims management, sustainability. I think is a lot of insight for insurers and InsurTech interested in working with you, I hope, and also changing our world.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, thanks very much, Sabine. Nice to speak to you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Jeremy.